Okay, we're gonna run the 490-year cycle for the brethren, and we're gonna use the age and dispensation chart. And I am also going to try to use this traveling chart for when we pointed out in the tabernacle, okay? Now, there are almost an innumerable witnesses of the 490-year cycle, but what I'm gonna do is the 1961 that's present on the chart. Now, the reason why 1960 is so important is because Dr. Kinley said that the age ended in 1960, and I know this is not close enough for you to see it. I know that the camera's not focused enough for you to see it, but just pull out your own age and dispensation chart, and you should see it on there. And in the present kingdom age, it says 4 times 490 equals 1960, and that was the end. What that means is that as far as Yahweh is concerned, that's the end of the age. Now, I know you're asking yourself, well, why are we continuing, why is time continuing to go on? It's because of Yahweh's long suffering. You'll read that in the 3rd chapter of 2 Peter. He's in his long suffering. Or in other words, we're in a probationary period, okay? And you see the same thing happen in the antediluvian age. Yahweh said, the end of all flesh has come before me. As far as Yahweh was concerned, that was the end. But Noah preached for 120 years. So that was Yahweh in his long suffering, just not willing that any should perish, okay? Or in other words, a probationary period, okay? Now, let's get the 490s. Let's find out how we calculate the 490 or the 1960, which is 490-year cycles. Okay, so let's see how we're going to calculate these 490-year cycles. All right, we're going to start with Adam. Adam lived for 930 years. You have that written right on your chart. Okay, now two 490-year cycles equals 980. Okay, so we're short 50. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to add 50, right? It says add 50 years for Pentecost. Okay, so that's one way you could look at it. And the other way you could look at it is that when you go into these days of creation, right? You see that Adam was created on the 6th day, and there was 5 days of creation before him. So you can also add it that way, okay? So 490 plus 490, or 490 times 2 is 980. So that's 2 490-year cycles you have there. All right, now moving on. That was in the Adamic dispensation, same age, but in the Adamic dispensation. Now in the Noahic dispensation, we're going to have 2 490-year cycles as well. Now, one of them is illustrated or written on his chart. They got 120 years because Noah preached 120 years, and the water stayed on the earth for a year and 10 days. In Hebrew, right, 360 days makes a year, not 365, okay? So 370 days, right? And this is, you're using prophecy too, a year for a day. You find that in Ezekiel 4 and 6, as well as Numbers 14 and I think 34. Okay, so if you take a year for a day, this 370, right, would be like 370 years, okay? So if you take the 120 that Noah preached, and then the 370 days or years that the waters was on the earth, you get a 490, okay? All right, so now that's 3 490-year cycles, but we said we needed 4, so where's the 4th one? Now, you know, man's number is 6. So when Yahweh flooded the world in Noah's age, Noah was 600 years old, okay? So he was 600 years at the flood, all right? 600. Now, he preached for 120 years. So if you minus 120 years, that's going to get you 480. See, so he was 480 years old when he received the vision, right? And he's a tenth generation from Adam, okay? So when you take the 10 and add it to 480, you get 490. So that's the final 490-year cycle in the antediluvian age, okay? Now moving on to the post-diluvian age, you got in the third dispensation, this is dealing with Abraham and Melchizedek, okay? Now, Abraham was born in 1995. Now remember, time is going backwards. It's counting down to the Messiah. So he was 1995 years before the Messiah. But you have to subtract 15 years because Isaac, his first child, which represents the law, is 15 years older than, Ishmael. I'm sorry. Ishmael is 15 years older than Isaac, okay? And because both Ishmael and Isaac have to do with the law, right? You have to subtract the 15 to get you 1980. Now, we were talking about the law, right? So from 1980 to the giving out of the law, or from 1980 to the dedication of the tabernacle, was 490 years. So that's your first 490-year cycle in the third age in time, which is the post-diluvian age, or in the third dispensation in under the post-diluvian age. Excuse me, I didn't mean to say ante. If I said ante earlier, I meant to say post. Ante means before, post means after. Diluvian is flood. So this is what happened before Yahweh ended the world with the flood, and these are the events that happened after Yahweh ended the world with the flood, okay? Now, we got 490. Now, from the tabernacle to the dedication of Solomon's temple, right? You'll see it right here. In Canaan land, the tabernacle was on Mount Zion for 450 years. I'm glad I remembered that because that's going to be a part of the 490 cycle. And the temple was in a year 3,000 years, from Adam, which was 1,000 years before the Messiah come. And that's Solomon's temple. That's on Mount Moriah. Okay. So from the tabernacle to Solomon's temple is 490. And how do you calculate that? Just subtract this 1,000 from this 1490 and you get 490. Okay. Now, Solomon's temple did stood and it was unmolested for 33 years, right? And that showed Yahshua not dying until the 33rd year, right? Being unmolested or unbothered, okay? But they had tore down this temple, Solomon's temple, because of Israel's disobedience a few times. So when they restored the temple, they restored the Zerubbabel temple. And this was under like Nehemiah, Ezra, and Zerubbabel. And you can read that in Nehemiah and Ezra. But there was, you see it's 510 here. So 510 subtracted from 1,000 is 490. So that's a 490 cycle from Solomon's temple to Zerubbabel's temple, okay? Now, from the edict of Artaxerxes, right, to the death of Yahshua, who is the temple, okay? And Dr. Kelly said this too, that one of the things we need to keep in mind is that when Moses went up into this mount and he looked and he seen Elohim, when Yahshua transfigured in front of Moses, this was a temple that he was looking at. And that's why you have the tabernacle next to it, because the tabernacle, this is the word or the temple, and the tabernacle is like the definition that defines the word or the temple. Just like when you look up a word in the dictionary, next to it is the tabernacle. So this is the temple, okay? And we know that this temple is really Yahshua. And how do we know that? Because Yahshua took Peter, James, and John into a high mountain and he transfigured into his Elohim body, right? Into his spiritual body, okay? So that's really Yahshua. So from the going forth of the commandment to restore the temple unto the Messiah, right? That was year 457, right? And if you add Yahshua's life, let's just do that real quick. Let's do 4, 5, 7, and then we're going to add 33 for Yahshua's lifespan. That's going to be a 0, 1, 8, 9, and then 4. See? 490 years. So that was 490-year cycles, okay? From Abraham to the dedication of the tabernacle or the law, from the tabernacle to the temple, from Solomon's temple to Zerubbabel's temple, and then from the edict of Artaxerxes down to the temple, which is Yahshua, okay? The temple of Yahshua's body. Now, if you notice, this says 510 and this says 457. So the difference between 510 and 457 is 53. So you would say, well, what about this 53-year gap? Well, when they tear down this temple, Yahshua, right? He's going to die, he's going to bury, he's going to resurrect, he's going to outpour the Holy Spirit, he's going to ascend, and 10 days later he's going to outpour the Holy Spirit. That's Pentecost. So the 50 and 53 represents Pentecost. Penta means 50 in Greek, okay? Now the 3 are what Yahweh meant when he says after those days, that he was going to write a new covenant on their mind, on their heart. It was not going to be like the first one, right? And he says after those days, that's the death, burial, resurrection. So that's what that 3 is for, the death, burial, resurrection. You'll see the same principle with Pete and them boys when they was fishing, right? They had to take the net and cast it to the right side, and they pulled up 153 fishes. That's 3 Pentecostals and the death, burial, and resurrection of Yahshua, right? And this is talking about during his ministry. He went through 3 Pentecostals, through Pentecost 3 times, and then he died, buried, and resurrected on the 3rd day. So that's why you have the 53 in between there, okay? So now you got 4 490-year cycles that equals 1960 here. You have 4 490-year cycles that equals 1960 there. And then over here in the present kingdom age, you're going to get a 1960. Now, what we're going to do here is, hold on, let me erase this so I could show it to you guys. All right, this doesn't look good, but it should still get the job done. Okay, so you'll read in the book of Daniel about numbers. There's a few numbers. This 490-year cycle is in the book of Daniel. Okay, but 3 other numbers that you'll learn in the book of Daniel will be 1260, which is Yahshua's ministry. This is 3.5 years, Yahshua's ministry. Then you'll have 1290, right? 1290, so 2, right? And you've added 30, okay? So a year for a day. Adding 30 to the 1260 is Yahshua's ministry plus his life. So his ministry was 3 years and his life was 33 years, okay? So this is his ministry, and adding 30 is adding his life, okay? Then you have 1335, which is adding 45, right? And this is down to Pentecost, okay? Because in Pentecost, it was the 4th age and 5th dispensation. So that's that 4 and that 5. Just like we were talking about how this tabernacle was on Mount Zion for 450 years. See that 4 and that 5, right? And then you also have Noah's Ark, right? The length of Noah's Ark was 450 feet. They've been at 4 and that 5. The length of the Ark of the Covenant, you can see it real little there, and you can see it better here, right? This Ark of the Covenant, it was 4.5 feet long, okay? So you see the 4 and the 5, and then Dr. Kinley on this side preached for about 45 years. So again, you see that 4 and that 5, okay? Now, what we have to do to get the 490-year cycles on in the present kingdom age, right? Hold on 1 second. Okay, how we're gonna get the 490-year cycles in the present diluvian age is we're going to calculate it, and we're going to use this number 1260, okay? That's in Daniel, all right? Now, Yahshua's ministry was 1,260 days, or 42 months, or 3.5 years, okay? Now, there's two sons, okay? There's two fathers. There's Yahweh the Father, and then there's the father of lies, it's the devil. There are two mothers in operation, right? Jerusalem, the mother above, and the mother of Horlocks, okay? That's the devil. There's two sons, the son of righteousness, that's Yahshua, who rose with healing in his wings, and the son of perdition, that's the devil, okay? And I just found out you got two types of children too. Children of the truth and the children of a lie, okay? So Yahweh has to be fair, because one of his divine attributes is justice. You can see it in that pure cloud. You can see that attribute in the cloud, which represents pure spirit. Okay, so he has to give the devil 1,260 years to deceive. Okay, now this starts from Pentecost, which would be Yahshua's 34th birthday, AD 34, right? So if you add these two numbers, you get 4, you get 9, you get 12. Yeah, you get 1294, okay? Now the devil's number, he who has wisdom, right? Let him count the number, and it's the number of man. You read this in Revelation, I think 13 and 18. And his number is 666. So now if you take the 6 plus 4, that's 0. Carry a 1. 6 plus 9 is 15, plus 1, that's 16, right? Carry a 1 again. 6 plus 2, that's 8, plus 1, that's 9. You see where I'm going? And then, boom, 1960, which you have written here. You have 4 times 490 equals 1960. And now you know why Dr. Kinley said the age ended in 1960. And I know you're saying, but wait, 1960, which was really, too, when you do prophetic time, when you add the 4-year error and then you take away Yahshua's life, 1960 is actually 1931. And that's the year that Doc had the vision, right? Shout out to the Holy Spirit and Rhonda Bazille. She showed that to us. Okay, so this is how you get the 1960 here, okay? So that's 4 90-year cycles in each age of time. Antediluvian, post-diluvian, and present kingdom age. All right, now what I want to do is I want to tell you that in the book of Daniel, 9 and 24 is where you pick up this 490-year cycle. It's written right here. 490-year cycles, Daniel 9 and 24, okay? And then I also want to say, as an honorable mention, in the 18th chapter of Matthew, when Peter asked Yahshua, how often should he forgive his brethren? And he told them 490 times. Go back and read it. It's when you add up the numbers that Yahshua used, it's 490. 70 times 7. Okay? And then also, if you go, and I'm not reading these scriptures, so please go back and read them. John 2 and 19, Yahshua said, tear down this temple and I will rebuild it in 3 days. He was talking about the temple of his body. They thought he was talking about Solomon's temple, or at this time, the Herodian temple, okay? Now, which is basically Solomon's temple, all right? So what they said was that he says, how is he gonna restore the temple in 3 days, and our progeny, our ancestors or our brethren was 46 years in building? See, 46 years in building plus the 3 years of his ministry is another what? 490. See? And then also in his tabernacle too. This tabernacle, as we mentioned, was on Mount Sinai for 450 years. How long were they out here in the wilderness? 40 years. So 40 plus the 450 is 490. Okay? In this tabernacle, there's a few 490s. I'll mention the few that I know. This first vessel is called the altar of sin sacrifice, or the brazen altar of sin sacrifice, and it has 4 corners. That's 4, and it's 90-degree angles, so that's 490s. Okay. This vessel in the holy place is called the altar of sin sacrifice. It's 90 feet from the gate, okay? And the incense had 4 ingredients, so that's another 490, okay? Oh man, there's a few more 490s. I can't really think about them right now, but I think that's good for now. And then also in the Elohim book, he runs the 490s. They're more than I can count. It's like innumerable witnesses for 490. But at least now we know how to get the 490-year cycle in each age of time. If you guys got anything from that, praise Yahweh.